This video did not go according to plan. Hello again and welcome back to another natural dyeing video. Today, the plan that I made went out the window. Originally this video was going to be about two different dye baths. It's going to do birch bark and acorns, and you will see what happened to the birch bark. The acorns got left behind in the pursuit of a purple color. And this is because I was using this footage for two different videos, this one that you're watching right now, as well as a school project. But I needed purple, and the birch bark did not make purple, and you will see what it did make. You will not be happy. So in my pursuit of purple, I had to make three other dye batches. One was blackberries, the second one was cabbage, and then the final one was blueberries. And I will show you how all those fabrics turned out at the end of this video. If you like this video and would like me to do some more natural dyes, please like and subscribe and leave a comment down below of what other colors that you think I should do. I'm currently thinking I need to use those acorns up, as well as I am tempted to try black beans, which should make blue if I am not mistaken and don't get misled. Alright, I'll see you at the end of the video. After I had let my birch bark ferment for a week, I realized I had much more than was going to fit in the pot. So I went through and removed some water and some of that bark. An imposter. And then I set it to simmer on the stove for about an hour. This smelled so bad. It was frankly quite disgusting. But the dye bath got nice and dark, which is what I was hoping to see. Once it had simmered, I tested the pH to make sure it was around where I wanted it to be, and it was quite acidic, which is what I was hoping for, and so I added my test swatch. This did nothing. You are going to be able to see a clip of it in a second, but it is white. There it is. It's just white. Okay, so I've dissolved some alum in here, soda ash in here. These are both warm water, and I'm gonna soak these in there to see if that helps it take the dye. I also have two pieces of that wool, not wool, alpaca. Okay, so those two samples, or 4 samples, are more dated, and then I attached them to string because the dye bath is really dark despite not giving any color, and I keep losing the swatches that I put in. So now it's like a nice little tea bag, and I'm gonna let it sit for a bit and then we'll see what's going on with it. I hope this fixes it. Okay, so I left this in here for, it's been hours now, and it's a little dark in here now, but they're still white. So this is being marked a failure, and we're gonna try something else instead. Alright, so today we are continuing on our journey to try to get purple. Today we are trying blackberries, which I have high hopes for. At least the bar is on the floor with the birch bark, which was just a complete failure. So I know I'll get something out of this. And then if blackberries don't work, I also have red cabbage that I'm gonna try, and I might try that anyways, just for funsies. Both of those are much less entertaining than birch bark, and the process is a lot easier and much more similar to my goldenrod video. But if we get purple, as long as we get purple, it'll be fine. So I have my fabric. I pre-washed this. This is only about 2 yards of fabric, and it is just, once again, a plain cotton muslin. And this is pre-washed. I washed high heat detergent the way that I would normally do it, so it got all its shrinkage out. And we are gonna start the same way we did with the goldenrod, with an alum mordant. This is my fancy new dye pot. Isn't it beautiful? It's only for weird shit, no food allowed. All right, let's make this weird soup. All right, so we're gonna start with more dating our fabrics. We poured the alum in, and then that fabric is left to simmer in that for about an hour once again. Once that was done, it got removed and rinsed in a bath of cold water. I didn't do this for the birch bark because everything I looked at said that the birch bark already had something in it that would make it not need to be more dated, but that was a lie. And here are the berries. So I added my berries, which I'm just using 2 packs from the grocery store, and then I added a lot of water. Just more and more and more water. And then those berries simmered for, I gave it about 2 hours until the berries were not floating anymore and were almost clear colored. And then I scooped them out with a pasta strainer and they looked gross. This one smelled a lot better than the birch bark though, so that's a good thing. And then the fabric gets to go into the dye bath. And this color was already looking so much better than anything that the birch bark put out. That got to simmer for about an hour and then let it sit until it was cool. And then that got rinsed out, and as you will see while I am rinsing, it lost a lot of color, and you can kind of see it turn grayish. Like it loses so much of that red pigment that it currently has, and it becomes like a gray tone. It is another day, and we are doing yet another dye bath because my other fabric, it turned out gray, which is, it's a nice color, and I'm not mad at the color, but I'm mad at it because I want purple. So we're going with the cabbage now. I have my alum, I have my freshly cleaned fabric here that is going to be stuck in. I'm not going to record that again because it's the same. It's just white fabric in clear liquid, so not super interesting, but I will update you as we go. Please excuse my poor knife skills. I cut up this half of a head of cabbage. It was gigantic, and I'm just trying to expose as much of the purple as possible so that the dye bath can be as pigmented as I want it to be. And I'm putting this all on cheesecloth to make sort of a tea bag, for lack of a better term, so that all of it can be removed pretty easily without having to strain it, and I can just pull this out and put my fabric straight in. Ooh, weird! Oh, it turns blue as soon as I put the cabbage in. Whoa! Wait, where's Mom? Okay, it's not even boiling yet, and it is already like really dark bluish purple. It looked much bluer when it was just starting, but now it's like You can see right here in the shadows, it looks more purpley. I have high hopes for this one, which is saying a lot coming from me, who my last two failed. And my makeshift sack seems to be working pretty well. I am getting little flecks that are coming out, but I should be able to just pull this out and get most of it out with no problem. This still has like more than an hour left because it needs to start boiling and then boil for an hour. So hoping we get a really good dye bath from this one, but I have no idea. I pulled my mordant out and it's sitting down here in this bucket with some cold water to sit and wait while this stuff gets prepared. I really should just buy a second dye pot, but sometimes, no. Once that had been boiling for about an hour, the cabbage stunk. It smelled bad. I missed the berries a lot. And the cabbage became clear, so that got removed, and then the fabric could go in. This one was looking a lot more bluish purple as opposed to the other fuchsia colors that my other attempts had appeared to be. Okay, so it's been going for like an hour, and as you can see, it is still pretty lightly colored. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a plate over it so that it keeps all of the fabric submerged under the water and just leave it overnight and hope that that helps the dye sink in a little more. Didn't help. Yeah, I feel like the reason the blackberries didn't do as well because I had not enough blackberries for the amount of fabric that I wanted to dye. I feel like if I did half of that, it would be much better, and if I had let it boil down more before sticking the fabric in, that would have helped. But I really do think people are just fucking lying. Yes. And now we're on to blueberries, which are just some frozen blueberries that had gone bad, so we're simmering them. Okay, so here are the two blueberry test swatches. This one is unmordated and is just on some plain white fabric that is undyed. And this one is an overdye with the cabbage. And that got it to that really nice purple as opposed to this, which is a more fuchsia. So that was what we were gonna go with. And then those got strained through a cheesecloth because we used such little water that the tea bag method wouldn't have worked. Pre-stained the bag to prevent pigment from being lost as it was strained through. And then my mom squeezed it out because I didn't want to touch it because it looked gross. I've been shot. How could you do that? Wow. Thanks a lot. And then once that was strained, the liquid was heated back up and the fabric got added in. And this time you'll notice I'm using significantly less liquid, so much so that it barely covers the fabric. Well, it doesn't cover the fabric, and I just stirred it constantly for about an hour. We did end up adding a little more liquid so that it could move slightly more freely without concern of splotchiness. It looks like cabbage now. Just the way with all the
cabbage.
wrinkles.
Yeah, it does.
Once it had been in there for what we felt was long enough, also I was running out of time for my school project, it got moved to the sink to be rinsed out. And like the last berry video, you can kind of see it turning gray as I rinse it, and the hem stayed a lot pinker than the rest of the fabric, which was interesting. Why, hello again, welcome back. So my working theory about why the birch bark just failed was because A, I collected that birch bark in October, and while I'm filming this, even though I had done the birch bark a few weeks ago, it is now mid-December. So it had been sitting around for like a month, as well as I got it off of dead, previously fallen trees that had been on my family's property for several years at this point. And even though some places said that older birch bark is better, I think part of my issue was that it was too old and that I should have gotten it from fresh, alive trees. And I wasn't really wanting to harm any trees at that point, but next summer I'm going to hopefully, if any trees need a little pruning, get some bark from branches. So the first of my successful, in heavy quotations, dye baths is the blackberries. Blackberries made this nice gray color. It's very light, and I think part of my problem with why all of my fabrics are turning out so light is that I'm not using enough dye stuff in comparison to the water that I'm using. And I've been using that much water because all of the articles that I've looked at, they have said that you need enough liquid in the pot to make sure that the fabric can move around freely, and that makes complete sense. You need to get an even dye bath, whatever. But I had not considered that much water is diluting the dye, which is fine. Like, this turned out really nice, and I actually really love this color. But I could have gotten a much deeper, prettier color if I had just used either a ton more blueberries or a lot less water and fabric. So that was the first one. Even though I really like this color, since I was going for a purple in my class, this is not quite purple enough. It's much more gray in most lights. Some lights it does have a nice purple undertone, but it's pretty gray. So I needed to do a backup. So my next one was red cabbage, which I had very high hopes for. I had seen lots of people get super vibrant colors with cabbage, from blues all the way to pinks, and I just wanted to stay right in the middle at purple. So I used a gigantic head of cabbage, well, half of it, but the head of cabbage was the size of my head, and I used about half as much fabric as I did for the blackberries. So I thought that would help, but this is what the cabbage looked like. It's just white. This was in the dye bath, I want to say for like 28 hours, simmering for about 3. And it just, nothing. I used all of that cabbage, I left it overnight, and then I added more cabbage afterwards because I didn't think it would have any color. And it just looks like this. So, I would like to say, if you want to get into natural dyeing, please manage your expectations, because it sometimes doesn't work. And a lot of the people who are showing off their dyes and writing articles about it that you can find online are people who've done this a lot before. This was only my 4th dye bath ever, so this was a little bit disappointing. I only have this much left because the next one I over-dyed with blueberries. And the blueberries, I'm very happy with the blueberries. This is how the blueberries turned out. Again, it also has kind of a gray undertone, but to me in real life right now it looks very purple. I'm not sure how well it's going to come across on camera. It's a nice, like, dusty lavender color, I guess is the best way to describe it, and I adore this. If I had so much more of this, I would be so happy. So this was the final one, and it worked. I wish I had more blueberries because my swatches, which I will show you in a minute, came out a lot better. So for this one, I had at that point figured out that I needed to use as little liquid as possible. Me and my mom, who I accidentally have gotten hooked on natural dyeing as well, just boiled down an entire bag of frozen blueberries, which had gotten freezer burned and we weren't going to use them. So we boiled that down with like a tiny bit of water to make the most concentrated dye that we could. And when we dipped the fabric into that concentrated dye, we got these colors. So I don't know if this is going to focus. I don't know how to be a influencer. So this purpler one, the purpler one, is the one with the cabbage on it already, and it had an alum mordant. And then this one, which has a much more pink undertone, is just straight up washed cotton, no anything. So obviously that's a big difference. And we had to water down the blueberries quite a lot to get it to be enough to completely cover this fabric and let it move around so that the dye bath is even. And I do think that worked. Like, the dye bath is very even. I have a few streaky bits. I really like this color, but it's not this color. So I am considering buying a lot more frozen blueberries and doing this again, because this is just like pretty much straight up blueberry juice, very little water. So we will see if that happens. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a like and subscribe, and comment down below if you were going to try any natural dyes and what colors you think I should go for next. I hope you have a great day. Okay, bye!